At a time when the Sinquefield Cup is being covered so fantastically all over the internet, this month we travel to Abu Dhabi for the International Chess Festival. Hello everyone, Andrew Martin here, and this is my BCM Game of the Month for September 2015. And the game this time is between Martyn Kravtsiv, 2599, and Grandmaster Gawain Jones from the United Kingdom, grade 2647. And it's a very interesting example of the Sicilian Dragon in practice these days. How much theory you've got to know, how much precision you've got to display to play an opening like this. Well, Kravtsiv played e4, and Gawain very courageously played his Sicilian Dragon. I say courageously because, you know, Gawain is a fantastic player. When you play an opening like this with so much theory on it, you run the risk that actually you're going to run into some bone-crushing novelty from a weaker player than yourself that you simply can't do anything about. That doesn't actually happen in this game. Instead, what happens is that Kravtsiv runs down the main line and then starts to play with brilliant technique. What we've got here is the acid test of the Sicilian Dragon, the Yugoslav attack. White has reinforced his centre with the move f3, and usually in this line he tries to attack black on the king side. Black, for his part, usually counters, of course, with a counter-attack on the queen side. And now it's up to White to decide how he's going to play this position. Is he going to cast on the queen side straight away, which is very common, or is he going to play bishop c4, which is the move Kravtsiv plays here. I suppose castles on the queen side shuts down a lot of black's options. Of course, that's still a heavily theoretical move. But the main point of bishop c4 is to take away the freeing break d5 from black, or to dissuade it. And when black can't free his game with that move, then white is supposed to have slightly more space. And of course, white stations the bishop on a very active square. The only drawback with bishop c4 is that the bishop might be exposed to attacks once a black rook comes to c8. So that's what black does in this game. He plays bishop d7, which is the main line, white castles, and now the rook comes to c8. Whereupon white's more or less got to move his bishop. So Kravtsiv plays bishop b3, all as seen literally thousands of times before. And now comes perhaps the first slight surprise. Gawain plays knight takes d4. The normal move here is, of course, knight to e5, probably followed by knight to c4. And there's a lot of theory when white plays h4. Black can choose between knight c4 or play the Soltis variation with h5. It's literally a question of taste. So just backing up, we now come to knight takes d4. Bishop takes d4, and now the point of the line b5. Well, this was first played by Topalov, so the variation holds Topalov's name. I think it was first played in 1996, where Topalov played this with black against Nigel Short. And at first sight, it doesn't look too promising for black, because black attracts the white bishop into a very strong square in the centre of the board. Traditional thinking shows that when these bishops come off the board, it should be easier for white to get a kingside attack going after that. So you'd think that simple moves in this position, such as h4, will be the way to go. But it's been proven that actually black's pawn advance on the queen side is very quick. So that is exactly how black intends to counter white's simple plan of attack on the king side, to push his queen side pawns forward. And as you can see already in this position, white's got to make some difficult decisions. It's probable that black's attack is quicker. So going back to b5, this position demands not exactly a new approach from white, but something different. He can't just mow black down with some sort of kingside attack. Already this is an important decision point. Now there are various moves for white in this position. For instance, white can go e5. Again, you don't see that move too often in a Yugoslav attack, but it's certainly possible. And after that, black's probably got to take the pawn and then play bishop c6. Well, theory has shown that black can probably gain equality in this variation. Very interesting is bishop takes a7. in these days of computer preparation, giving up any material in any position is dangerous because, you know, again, you're running the risk that the guy's looked at this with his strong engine and white simply ends up a pawn up. Well, it turns out after this, black goes b4, white puts his knight in on d5, and you'd think that after knight takes, e takes, queen a5, bishop d4, you know, black was simply a pawn down for nothing. But again, black has some resources in this position. I mean, this is no place to go into the ramifications of all the lines, but just to show you that rook takes c2 check is actually a very interesting move here, and the jury is still out as to whether this is okay for black or not. I mean, clearly white can't take with the king because bishop f5 check is crushing straight away, but he can of course take with the bishop. Then comes queen takes a2. And this is a position which is really not easy for white at all. Black's clearly threatening check, followed by bishop f5. So white's probably got to make room for the king. The rook comes to c8. King must run out. Queen c4. Black's got a ferocious attack. Finally, after rook takes c2 check, it's probable that queen takes c2 is the most pragmatic, allowing black to play rook c8. Then white's just going to take off the bishop, and then play a move like, well, let's say king b1, and hope that in the long run, you know, his two rooks are going to overhaul the queen. Long way to go in this position. I mean, I think white must be a bit better here, but it's going to require very accurate play. So dropping back to the starting situation, you can see, you know, there are many options for white to be considered, but none of these lead to the traditional kingside attack smash for white being countered by the ferocious black queenside counter-attack, possibly involving an exchange sacrifice on c3. All that sort of thing's out of the question in this line with the bishop on d4. So Kravtsiv plays what is thought to be the main line here, knight to d5. A strictly positional approach. There'll be some exchanges, and then white takes back with a pawn, hoping to nail down the pawn on e7. So white's got two ideas in this position. Number one, he masses pieces in the e-file, going after the pawn at e7. And number two, he tries to take advantage of the slightly denuded black king on g7 with the usual kingside stuff, maybe h4, g4. But white's a long way from mate in this position, especially after black's response a5. That is the main line, just getting on with the job to dissuade white from this kingside smash. So white plays a3. Black retreats his king. White puts his rook in the centre. And now black brings his rook up to c5. And white played rook e3. The story goes that in this game, Gawain, as black, was playing his moves very quickly. And justifiably so, as this position has been seen many times before. And basically with white threatening just to mass all his pieces against e7, black's got to get on with it. So he sacks a pawn with b4. And I think this is a pawn which white should take. If he goes all wimpy and plays a4, then I think queen e8 is quite nice for black straight away. I don't see how bishop takes a4 can be stopped. And after that, black will obviously have some sort of queenside attack. So white takes, as he should. Black moves his queen to a8. And so we see that black has opened up all the lines on the queen side. Has he got enough compensation for the pawn? And it's around here that white starts to play brilliantly over the next few moves. He kicks off with bishop c4. That was given as a novelty on the ChessBase website, but in fact it has been played before, although in some obscure games. The point of it is simply to make room for this rook on e3 to defend the king. Maybe that rook can swing across to a3 at the right moment and eject the black queen. What else has been tried? Well, in the most recent game I can find with this line, king d2 has been the most common choice, just running out of the way, allowing black to play rook b8, and then white swings the queen across to h4. And there's a very interesting example of this line which was played in the game Pacha versus Balmega. Both of these guys are about 24.50. Vienna 2015. Going to carry on with this game because it's quite interesting. White won in the end. Black played bishop f5, white played rook c3. Black pinned the rook, and now came the mistaken g4. And in the game, black played rook takes b3, but he missed the bone-crushing move bishop takes c2 here. And I'm pretty sure that Gawain worked this out in his pre-game preparation and was hoping that white would play king d2. And this is actually a knockout blow, because what does white play? He can't take with the rook. If he takes with the bishop, then rook takes b2. And white is all over the place in this position. And finally, if he takes with the king, black's got the beautiful move here, queen b4. You know, leaving the white pieces in a fearful tangle. This move could easily be missed if you were not using an engine. And, well, it's game over already. White cannot untangle. Black's threatening to take on b3, of course. If white runs, then black just takes on c3 and takes on b3. And clearly black is better in this position. White's king is too exposed to contemplate survival. So it just goes to show how difficult it is in this position for white to nail down his extra pawn. Of course, his bishop on b3 is lousy, and black's got all the lines open on the queen side. So that's what makes the next few moves by white so impressive in this game. He first plays bishop c4. Gawain puts his bishop out on f5, nice and active. And now white gets on with the plan of swinging the rook across. The queen comes to c8. And now b3, completing the plan started by bishop c4. White's rooks come across to an active square, and he locks up the bishop on c4, shutting down the c-file. So black has now got to really work hard to prove that he's got enough compensation for his pawn here. As again, over the next few moves, white methodically increases his control of the position. Black plays queen c7, making room for his rook, and white brings his queen to a very nice square in the centre. Queen up to d4. Queen to b6. I think around this point, Gawain was possibly finding it difficult to come up with sufficiently active moves. e6 was suggested by my engine, and the idea of that is to try and get rid of the bishop on c4. Okay, white can reach a clearly better rook endgame. He can take on e6. But once that bishop on c4 is gone, then the active black rooks might hold the day. For instance, when white takes on d6, the idea is to take on c4. The queens come off, and then rook takes c4. How easy is this for white to win? Okay, it's torture for black, but I get the impression this is perhaps not so easy. But of course, if this is black's best play in the whole variation, you know, you don't play the dragon to get into some sort of lousy endgame like this. Nevertheless, I would estimate, you know, black's chances of holding this as pretty good. As it happens in the game, Gawain quite understandably plays queen b6. White just continues to reinforce his position against any tricks. And now comes queen to b4, keeping as active as possible. Again, maybe the best here was to try and get that bishop off the board. Bishop d7 and then bishop b5. But even here, you know, I don't think black's position is that great. For instance, white takes, black takes back, and now rook d3, guarding against queen takes b3. And if queen d7, g4, and again, this position is going to be pretty tortuous for black. You know, it's a very long haul, and at the end of it, you know, black's probably going to lose. Black can try and break the shackles with some sort of move like e6, but as you can see, he's being forced to weaken his position in order to get these chances. So if white just plays solidly with rook e3, something like this, a pair of rooks come off, queen e3, has this really helped black's chances? I don't think so, because now, of course, white's got two passed pawns on the queen side instead of one. So we can reach the conclusion this position is not at all easy for black. Maybe not lost, but certainly extremely difficult. So rook comes to a7, rook comes to b7. That was probably forced to protect e7. White goes rook a4, queen b6. And now I think white finally doesn't play the best move. I mean, for the last 10-15 moves or so, he's been playing really fantastic chess just to nail down this position. But b4 might give black a sniff of holding the draw. I mean, white probably should just go with either h4 here or simply king b2 and just say to black, well, what's your next move? King b2 I quite like because, you know, that makes the king better. The king is safer on b2. White's major pieces are connected. That just looks really good. b4 slightly loosens the white position. But after Gawain's response, a mutual mistake, I think after that it becomes easier for white. What should black do? Well, he should sack his queen. He should go queen takes b4. And of course, that's a hard move to contemplate playing. But is this so easy now for white to win? Only a rook at the moment, but black's going to get that bishop. And he's got some counterplay. His pawn structure is not at all easy to attack. You have to prefer white after rook d4. I mean, we can go rook c3, rook d2, rook c7. But is this so easy for white to win? I'm not so sure. That was maybe Gawain's best chance. But actually, going back, well, rook c7 was played. Bishop a6. And now, after this, white is able to force through winning exchanges. And we get now to this double rook endgame, where the problem is that white's pawns are very strong on the queen side. He's got an active king. That is the problem. Black's king is a long way away from the action, and he can't really get back to save the day on the queen side. So what we see now is, again, gradual improvement by white. Black's forced to keep active in order to try and rescue the position. White comes in with a check. He takes on e6. He gives another check, driving the black king forward. Of course, if black goes to h6, then h4 is just crushing. And after king f6, Kravtsiv takes on h7. And once a second pawn goes, I think black's position can now be considered to be lost. So the game concluded d5, h4, rook bc6, rook d3. White just holds everything together. d4 the last try. C takes d4, fearing no ghosts. g5, h takes g5, king takes g5. The king comes up. King h4, king f4, and now rook f5. Rook h5, sorry. And that cuts out any counterplay at all. So Gawain resigned. So this game proves that in the Topalov variation, black's probably got a lot of work to do before he can rescue the situation. And just going back to the important position here, bishop c4 was the introduction to this interesting plan with rook a3. Black's got it all to do to prove that he can equalise in this situation.